it only took 10 years to bring the world to the brink of collapse. This was a time where rising sea levels, collapsing economies, and broken alliances would transform Earth as we know it. In October 2033, the first ever Category 6 hurricane occurred, Hurricane Zeta. And only a few months later, in January 2034, the wide-scale fuel and food shortages across the globe led to a second Great Depression. Finally, in 2035, the European Union officially disbanded following Germany's collapse. The world had become a hostile environment. Everyone was out for themselves, and a lot of previous alliances were dissolved. A number of those who were left behind needed to band together in search of a safe place to exist. These people, farmers, doctors, engineers, soldiers, and a number of families who had previously been worlds apart, were forced to join together in order to survive. The media began to call them the non-patriated. They called themselves the no-pats. By 2037, humanity had eventually begun to adapt to this new way of life, and a number of revolutions in energy, desert irrigation, hydraulic levees, and seawalls had successfully reclaimed a lot of the farmland previously lost, which enabled the rebuilding of supply chains. And this progress led to some of the nations reopening their borders. However, with no way of returning the 1.2 billion people back to their countries of origin, the no-pats became a permanent fixture in all of the economic, military, and social policy making decisions. Many of the no-pats were still highly distrustful of the governments that had exiled them, and thus refused the invitation to absorb themselves back into society. A number of no-pat leaders emerged, inspiring a new identity free from former nationality ties, and successfully drew a line in the sand, highlighting the difference between the old world and the new world norms. "We are no-pats" became a rallying cry. In 2040, a space storm knocked out over 70% of the world's satellites. The subsequent blackouts caused mass devastation. Planes crashed, communications collapsed, and the global supply chains once again came to a standstill. As a further result, the prices of grain, oil, and coal soared. Thousands of lives were lost. With no internet, no navigation, no surveillance, and no weather foresight, the world has lost some of its greatest tools in communication. Unsurprisingly, geopolitical distrust surged overnight. With no one able to spy on one another, they could also no longer trust one another. Both Russia and the US came to a head, claiming the other was responsible for the blackout, while some suspected the no-pats were behind it, and accused them of trying to sow anarchy. Former military and combat-trained specialists among the no-pats rose up within the armed task forces in a strategic move to defend themselves as tensions continued to rise. It appeared that an all-out world war was imminent. With no other choice, the no-pats had to choose sides. They were no longer fighting for a flag, but for their future survival. As expected, the food and fuel shortages only further ignited tensions, and a shadow war began where the influences of Russia and the United States helped to ignite the conflict between other countries, although they themselves did very little fighting. To maintain plausible deniability, both sides fielded no-pat task forces as proxies in escalating conflicts over resources, with the promise of giving them a piece of what's left. The war between Russia and the US, fought with no-pat specialists and soldiers, took place across the globe, where both sides tried to maintain control over vital resources across a fractured Earth. In Battlefield 2042, the story narrative will continue to be fed through the Battle Pass seasons, and they'll be unique to those specific time periods where the players are present. Additional lore will also be found on the maps, as well as backstories for the various characters, who all have their own origins that align with the story. After collecting several parts of the story, things will slowly start coming together, allowing you to understand the world and the history of Battlefield 2042. As already stated, these battles will be taking place all over the world. Some of the locations that have been revealed so far are Kourou, French Guiana, where a battle takes place around the site of an imminent rocket launch. Doha, Qatar, a city that has been lost to massive dust and sandstorms. Brani Island, Singapore. Tropical tornadoes are a constant threat around this vital American trade location. Songdo, South Korea. In this huge metropolis, the fighting will occur between skyscrapers and throughout the city plazas. Alang, India. Along a strategic section of India's west coast, colossal ships stranded on the beach are being stripped for parts. Queen Maud Land, Antarctica. Oil extraction has turned the freezing area into a strategic hotspot. In the eastern desert of Egypt. Through the extreme conditions, a giant wall has been built to secure rich man-made agricultural areas. Battlefield 2042 is set in a near-future, fictitious yet real-world what-if scenario where the world is battling for survival over the remaining resources. The remaining world superpowers are utilising soldiers who no longer have a place they call home to do their fighting for them, with the promise of something better if they were to survive. I've spent a lot of time in Battlefield games over the years. If by chance people are interested in my slightly unorthodox way of covering the game, awesome. But either way, I'll be playing it regardless. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one. Cheers!
Incoming fire! Attention all squads. The Russian troops are falling back. Do whatever you can